Flipping hell, Chris, this is your rock star fantasies coming real, isn't it?
Yeah, if I had one, it might be.
Really?
Well, I think a crowd of people and a stage is more McGuinness than me. Paddy will go, hello and welcome to Top Gear! And I'll go, whatevs, can I go over there and skid the car around?
Yeah, yeah. On that note, back to the cars which we're standing next to. Now, there's an elephant in the room. When the film started, there were 3 cars. We're standing next to 2 cars. Did you actually see it with your own eyes?
No,
off?
I was, I'd just gone past him.
Yeah.
The other way,
yeah.
And about a minute later I had a radio in the car. I got the comms check, which was something along the lines of, he's off.
Which is fairly...
And he was off. He really was.
And how did you see him afterwards? Was he in one piece?
He was okay, he was fine. There was a serious side to it, everyone was okay. Paddy wasn't being irresponsible, you know, it was just one of those things, I hate to say.
And I think the lesson learned probably is that old supercars, or hypercars I've been calling that, are a lot harder to drive than modern supercars. I kind of take it for granted, I certainly do.
Yeah.
But they look after us, don't they? All the electronics, safety nets.
I think with supercars, there's a time around sort of the late 90s when it changed.
Yeah.
And before that, when I first started doing the job, the telling thing was that on a Friday, if you had something really fast and leery and exotic, it got left in the car park. Because a lot of journalists were like, well, it's wet, I don't want to take that home, I'll spank it. Yeah. Whereas now, it's like, oh, you got a Veyron, I'll get in it, I'll take that home. Because you've got all the systems. Yeah. But I remember having a Viper GTS and rotating it on the Clapham one-way system at 25 miles an hour. Because the tyre technology was terrible, there were no systems. You were on your own. You really were.
And now the work experience bloke can jump in the 600 horsepower, off you go.
It really is the case that they've become so usable, and I think some of the majesty's been lost, because I like the idea of something just sitting there statically and looking at you, and it's eyeing you, and it's saying...
And you're looking at the clouds, aren't you?
I could bite you, I could bite you.
Yeah, yeah.
And both of these can bite.
All right, so Ferrari F40. If you don't mind me asking, how old were you when that launched in 87?
12.
12, so was that proper poster car for you growing up?
That is the car. I remember the front cover of Car magazine when it was first out. Yeah. I remember reading that it was a slightly fake group test they did at Fiorano. Someone managed to get one photograph of it with a 959. Yeah. And what was it? It was a Countach anniversary. They got the 3 together.
Did 16 pages.
Yeah, exactly.
On it.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that's the car. But I suppose always remember F40 NPG, which was Nick Mason's and still is Nick Mason's F40 doing the rounds. Mark Hale's driving it round Donington Park in the wet, doing an audio recording for Fast Lane magazine. I mean, I could geek out for a long time on this stuff. And then I got the chance to really skip one about, by a friend of mine owned one and said, come and drive it.
You did a video,
We did a film, and I think that day cemented in my mind that it is the greatest road car of all time. There are other great cars, but if you had to say to me, what's the epitome of a fast road car, that's it.
And what is the magic? What makes it so magical to drive?
There's something about it that takes you so far beyond any other Ferrari. It's so light, it's so immediate, there's nothing in it that's superfluous, and also it takes turbocharging and it makes it something to be proud of. This idea of boost and this thing, you're always waiting for it to come, but also it's so slidable. Because when you get in one now, it's like £1 million and you're thinking, what am I going to do with it? And within 10 minutes, you're like, oh, I'll just treat it like an M3.
Well, you are, Chris.
No, but honestly...
it's a treat.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. It is... and also, the look. Come on.
So good.
The look and the size of it.
Where does this rank in the sort of Chris Harris Ferrari files, all-time great Ferraris? Because I know that you're partial to a bit of 288 GTO.
Yeah, but I've driven a 288. I mean, this is so much better to drive. But I've got this sneaking suspicion, given that this is kind of a 288 Evoluzione with a different body on it, why couldn't you make a 288 drive like that? The ultimate Ferrari is something that looks like a 288 and drives like that. It must be possible.
Yeah, a few quid.
But no, that is... If you could offer me any Ferrari with a number plate, I'd have one of those.
All right, XJ220. Are you a fan?
Of this one, yes.
Don't carry it. No,
this is a Don Law special. Let's be straight. This is a Don Law special.
All right.
They are the preeminent world experts on these cars. What they've done with them is sensational, and the way they drive is quite unlike other ones that I've driven. Standard one, I'm not really a fan of it. I'm a fan of the way it looks. I'm a fan of what it stands for. Yeah. And I do like the fact that very briefly it was the fastest car in the world. But the whole V6 thing didn't really work for me, and to drive, the first time I drove them was a wet Welsh B road, and I just remember thinking all those stories that journalists back in the day wrote about, there I was drifting at 70 miles an hour coming out of a third gear turn, were utter
Didn't you drive everything for the first time on a Welsh B road?
Most things I did.
There's a lot, have you seen in the back, there's a lot of space. They obviously designed it and then shrunk the engine.
You know the story, don't you?
Yeah, the V12.
So the V12, it was at the Birmingham Motor Show with the V12 in it, and they got all the depositors to write checks, then the oil went wrong, and then they bunged basically a Metro 6R4 engine in it, and away they went.
Yeah.
And that's what you ended up with.
Bloody
the
hell.
irony is, it sort of prefaced the template everyone else will be using in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a vehicle that you can tell was built with a confidence and with a budget and the knowledge it was going to sell every single one. There are more of those than there are 993 RSs, by the way. Did you know that?
Really?
There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Whereas this is infinitely rarer. Some might say more beautiful, but to drive in standard form, it's just nowhere.
You touched on the way it looked. I think you said you liked the way you...
I love it.
Sorry, my ears, I think there must be some interference. There's a drone up there, mate.
Look at it.
That has dated particularly badly.
Look at the silhouette. Look at the silhouette of it. It's just massive.
Bloated. It looks like me after a large Indian.
No, I love it. Because it still matters. I remember, again, Car Magazine, the story about Martin Brundle doing 217 miles an hour in it, when they took the cats off it. Yeah. Back then, supercars of this nature, let's face it, cars whose performance was so far beyond normal cars, they didn't happen very often. So when they happened, it was, if you were a car geek like me, it was a life-stopping event. Yeah. Now, of course, every other week, someone's launching something that can do all this stuff.
5 new Ferraris this year.
But back then, there weren't many. Yeah. And I suppose when they arrived, it was just a point of celebration. And there were no TV shows, no internet. So you'd get this one magazine, and it would just get dog-eared. I found the issue that this was in my barn the other week, before we'd shot this. Yeah. And there was a wonderful phrase, and I don't know who'd written it, maybe Gavin Green or someone like that had written it, and it basically just said, on a wet road, this is one of the worst cars I've ever driven. It's borderline dangerous. And I thought, should I tell Fred that or not? Oh, no, I'll keep that back.
No, keep that back. Interesting you mentioned Fred, because obviously, him doing over 200 in this, you've got to admire the man's balls.
Yeah, but I think this one would go well beyond 200.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that...
No, because it's still moving around, it's still old, it's still, you know...
I do love his attitude. Well, Chris, is this... Because I'll jump in that.
Freddie's like that, he's quite binary.
Yeah,
if you can see what he's seeing, what you're seeing here is Dunsfold Aerodrome, some clouds and a bit of pink sky. Fred's seeing ones and noughts in green letters going across like that. So, no, fair play to him, he did a great job, it was a great experience. I'm really sad that Diablo didn't survive. But frankly, you know, it was maybe that Diablo was destined for the scrapyard in the sky anyway.
We'll leave it there. Cheers,
boss.